important point in terms of seeing that how the diseases can be transmitted from the animals to humans. And Professor Christopher also explained in detail about the anthrax. I'll just briefly tell like how this particular case of anthrax in Orissa was reported and how we investigated. You see, if we the locations here, the first the burial sites, the animals died and it was buried, and there are different burial sites were there. So these are the locations where animal deaths were happening, and then the human cases started. So this is an example of how see that how this kind of joint in outbreak investigations will help in containing the outbreaks. This particular case of it happens recurrently in this particular place of Orissa. And if we take, how we have to make surveillance and infected zones and take precautions in these areas, vaccination for anthrax, for example, and no vaccinate along the infected and also surveillance zones so that the disease is not transmitted to humans also. The second example I would like to take here is about veterinarians in understanding the epidemiology of known and unknown zoonotic diseases. This is important aspect because to know that how the already which are reported diseases, and some diseases like COVID in future can come as become and become zoonotic, or maybe even a pandemic. So for that, I'll maybe how veterinarians can play a role. Before that, this is one thing, the uh, stats which says about the emerging infectious diseases. So if we talk of the percentages, zoonotic it is 60%, and vector-borne 20%, and the drug resistance 20%. Out of the zoonotic 60%, 71% is it from the wildlife origin. So why this statistics is very important, whatever the studies we have to do, we have to look into these, the percentage of zoonotic diseases which are emerging from animals and again from the wildlife. So how to, what happens when an emerging infectious disease uh, can spread from one place to the other place? This is what they say, how a zoonotic pathogen spreads actually. Stage one is always about there is no human infection, and then the stage two where there is localized human infection. I was taking example of the even influenza or anthrax. It is only localized. Even influenza, we never had any human case in India. And then maybe if it goes to stage three, then it will spread to globally. So this is what the stages of emergence. Why this is important is, if you say stage one, most of the times the outbreaks which is happening in animals, if it is contained, there will not be any stage one. There will not be even human infection. So if at all it happens, it will be localized. So why if we take care of these zoonotic diseases outbreaks at the stage one and stage two level, there will not be any widespread transmission. So where it starts in animals, and then it goes to humans, and then maybe subsequently it transmits to other places, and eventually, if it is a pandemic, it goes to globally to other countries. So the point of contact is always the veterinarians in terms of the zoonotic diseases. So how it happens in the in a reservoir host, how the infection is maintained, how it is spillover happens. The detail is not required, but just to see that how the pathogens are maintained in the reservoir host. The reservoir host can be different. I'll explain in the next few slides. The reservoir can be a different host like rodents and other animals, or it can be a vector, or it can also be and environment. So what drives this emergence of zoonotic diseases? So if you see that why in this particular aspect, what I was trying to cover is emerging infectious zoonotic diseases, which may also be known or unknown. What are the factors driving it? Maybe Professor Christopher was also mentioning about other different factors, the climate change and agriculture intensification, how this are increasing. These are very limited factors. You can go on talking about all these factors in detail. Like everybody knows, the population of human is increasing, and with that, the burden of food security in terms of the livestock population. If we talk of food security for both in terms of the population increase, and that's where all the stress on the environment comes up, and the changes in the dynamics of reservoir host population. So this is again, I'll talk about that, how the urbanization is playing a role. Agriculture intensification, as There is a demand for food, so a lot of land is getting, lot of deforestation is happening, and that land is converted for either for the livestock crops or grazing by the livestock, or by for the purpose of growing the food crops. And climate change, ultimately the climate change is not the driving force. What I mean here is, if the climate change is not the driving force, there are other factors which are also driving climate change. So ultimately, then climate change will impact the occurrence of any livestock diseases, human diseases, or zoonotic diseases. And of late, there are many studies which shows that climate change, in one of the paper, it was, and the previous speaker was saying about half of the pathogens which are affected by the climate change. And the biodiversity loss, everybody talks about the biodiversity. We need to have biodiversity, biodiversity of the, if we talk of the agriculture biodiversity, or the uh, your forest diversity, everything is important. When there is a lot of biodiversity, the pathogens spillover is less. So there are a lot of concepts on that. We'll not go into the details. So these are the major factors which are driving the emergence of zoonotic diseases. So what are the reservoirs in that case? So if you talk of, there are different definitions, which not go into the details. But one thing we have to remember, like when you talk of reservoirs, absence of reservoir, in a population or an environment or a location, will not to lead to the repeated occurrence of the disease. So if there is a reservoir, then the disease is maintained in that population. So reservoirs, it can be any animal or vector or environment. I'll take the examples of each and then see that how veterinarians are playing a role, how the One Health approach is required, how we can contribute all together and prevent zoonotic diseases in both animals and humans. So if you talk of the pathogens which are shared among domestic animals and humans, there is 39%. So pathogens which are affecting human pathogens which are affecting wildlife, there are 43%. The pathogens which are affecting both domestic and wild is around 26%. So if you talk of the reservoir host, and how much the percentage of the viruses, not necessarily viruses, all the zoonotic pathogens they harbor. Carnivores contributes around 43%, and ungulates 39%, rodents 22, non-mammalian host around 13%, primates around 12%, birds 10%, and marine mammals around 5.1%, and the bats, which is around 1.9%. So this stats with what is depicted here says how the zoonotic pathogens are maintained in the different reservoirs of zoonotic diseases. If you see, carnivores are carrying more, are 43%. But in terms of the potential of human-to-human transmission point of view or viral zoonosis, then rodents, primates, and bats are more important, because they harbor some of the viruses which has the potential to, once it is spilled over to humans, it can also lead to human to human transmission. Bats, although it's 1.9%, but they harbor a lot of important zoonotic pathogens. So these are the main host. If you want to see, other hosts are also important. They may carry some parasitic or bacterial zoonotic pathogens, but in terms of the pandemic potential, these are the major important hosts. If you talk of the different reservoirs, I was talking about it. The reservoir can be a host, it can be an environment, it can be a vector. I'll take few examples of what different reservoirs. If we talk of the Japanese encephalitis, everybody knows, it is maintained in the waterfall birds, which is specifically the Hebron and egrets, and mosquitoes. And in mosquitoes, this transovarial transmission is there, and then again subsequent mosquitoes come, the next generation also infected, and it is maintained in these waterfall birds. So it's always there. But whenever these infected mosquitoes, if they bite the pigs, then the virus gets amplified. There's a reason pig is amplifier host in case of Japanese encephalitis. And then humans can get infected either by directly bite of the infected mosquitoes, or through maybe they're not directly from the pigs, but the mosquitoes biting on pigs and then subsequently transmitting to humans. So if this is what the virus, if you say in birds, is maintained regularly. So that is the reason you find recurrent outbreaks of Japanese encephalitis in endemic places. So the other example, I would say, if we talk of the reservoir point of view, in anthrax is one example where environment, everybody knows, in environment, these spores can survive for many years. There are different theories to say, 15 years, 20 years. There are even stories up to 50, 60 years. So, but one main important point is, if the soil has favorable conditions, then it can, survive in that. And the cycle of anthrax is maintained in an endemic area. So wherever there is, so the animals ingest the infected feed or water, the spores get inside the host, and then they get, inside the host, germination takes place. So, the spore gets converted into the vegetative form of the bacteria, and then the animal dies. And once the death of animal takes place, then the vegetative form of the bacteria gets converted into the spore form. And if it is not properly disposed of, it will remain in the soil because of the, oozing of blood from the natural orifices, and that contamination of the soil and that area becomes endemic. And then maybe the soil is contaminated there. And then once it goes to the soil, it becomes spore and remain dormant, and then maybe picked up in the next cycle. So this is what the environment. What I was trying to say, the importance of the reservoirs in transmission of zoonotic diseases can be either host or environment or a vector. To see that if absence of these will not lead to diseases in animals and subsequent transmission to humans. So this is the example of now the next example of reservoir. If you talk of vector, which the disease which we work on is Krasno forest disease. In this case, both the vector can also maintain the virus, and there are some host. They say some rodent species also harbor the virus, and then maintain that area of endemic KFD places. So the nymph is an infective stage to humans, which transmit the virus. So if you talk of the endemic diseases which regularly the spillover happens with respect to India is KFD, and rabies is one example which was discussed earlier, H5N1 and Japanese encephalitis, and different hosts are affected. There are different reservoir been identified, and there are some rare diseases, zoonotic diseases in India, which is reported regularly, like not regularly, rarely. Is like CCHF is one example. No clinical disease reported in animals, but there is high seroprevalence in the domestic animals, and the virus is again maintained in the ticks, which is Hyaloma vector, and the rodents. Exotic diseases or the unknown diseases with no possibilities of spillover. We have this Ebola virus, where there is one report. Apart from that, there is no report in India. So there are many viruses in this study. What they report is the spillover risk of ILF viruses. They have ranked the viruses which has potential, which can lead to transmission in humans, and they have listed different viruses like Lassa, Ebola, and Nipah is also there, which is regularly reported in India from Kerala. So what we discussed in the first two was to see how veterinarians are playing a role in terms of zoonotic disease outbreak investigation. And we covered this aspect of how this veterinarians can play at different stages of emergence of zoonotic diseases. So by taking these examples of reservoir and other things, it can be for known diseases, it can be for unknown diseases, and how the entry point or the first case point, veterinarians are playing a role. So in terms of the next aspect, what we'll be discussing is how veterinarians are playing a role in terms of One Health research. So everywhere the veterinarians are involved. As I said, if we start the occurrence of the outbreak is one place, and then the spillover point of view also in the environment everywhere. Then the first point of contact is veterinarian. So how the disease transmission, playing a role. You need to see that the importance of veterinarians is always there. In terms of the One Health research, I'll take few examples what we are doing. One disease which we are studying is Crimean Congo hemorrhagic fever, which is a tick-borne zoonosis caused by the virus belonging to family Nairoviridae, genus Orthobunia virus. So the distribution of this CHF, it is reported from more than 30 countries, including India. And the expansion of the viral disease can occur by, the um, introduction of the virus in the from the ticks. So if you see this graphics, what they say, how humans can get the infection is, this is the virus on the left side. If you see, virus is maintained in the ticks. by both transovarial and transtadial transmission. And whenever there is, the ticks, which the different stages of the ticks, if it comes to cattle and different other host, maybe a rodent or some other animals, and then from there, the ticks which can go to and bite humans. So that disease is one aspect which is depicted here is the nosocomial infections, which is reported in CCHF because of the human to human transmission happening in the hospital settings. So this is how the transmission of CCHF takes place, and what we are looking into different aspects to see that that there are other ICR institutes which are involved in the diagnosis and doing work on CCHF. So there are different assays to diagnose the disease. So if you talk of the global distribution of this CCHF, you have this disease in mainly in Asia and Africa and some European countries. But the disease still is not there in North American countries and South America and in Australia. But rest all continents they have reported. Even Antarctica there are no reports. So one question comes to mind, like, why this is important to understand is, we feel like, at the level of field veterinarians or maybe anyone as a veterinarian, if you're working, how they can play a role in terms of prevention and control of zoonotic diseases. If you see India, how India got CCHF, still there are many unknown reasons for that. We still don't know how, whether we got it from some European countries or some other Asian countries or from the African countries. So we still don't know how we got CCHF. First time the report was in 2011. After that, there are regular reports of outbreaks of CCHF in India. So we did that some study to understand what are the factors which may be playing a role for the emergence of CCHF and also subsequent transmission of the CCHF in India. And one of the reason, what they say, because of the migratory birds also, these are the different pathways which of migratory pathways. There are two major pathways which are coming through India. If you see the outer line, doesn't mean the birds are going in this line. Within that line, this area of migratory birds pathway. So what they say is the infected ticks in the endemic countries, they come from the endemic countries and they enter India, and then the infected ticks then drop off in some Indian states, and we can get the disease. So this one pathway which is in the red, if you see the major West Asian, uh, East African flyway, there is one Central Asia flyway. So if you see, because this flyway, which is major West Asian, East African flyway, and which comes into the states of northern parts of the India, Rajasthan and Gujarat. So this flyway overlaps with that states. So this may be one reason that why only Gujarat and Rajasthan few cases and UP also few cases reported. In Jammu and Kashmir also there was very earlier report was there, but only mainly Gujarat is affected. This is one reason they say it may be possible, because more studies are required. And we also did to collect the data on different vectors, distribution of different species, how they are distributed. And we also made this kind of analysis, try to see that where, if you see this map, what we have done is these are the suitable conditions for Hyloma vector. I think if we talk of the vectors, especially ticks, a lot of research is happening in the veterinary institutes, and this is one thing. If you want to see, you collect the Hyloma samples and try to test it for different viruses, including CCHF, in the high containment laboratories. So these are the high risk areas where the Hyloma can be found, especially the habitat. If you see the darker red indicates their presence of vector is most likely. And if you say Rajasthan, parts of Gujarat, northern parts and southern parts of India is also sort of suitable for Hyloma. And we also sort of make some predictive or risk map for the disease. What does it mean is, because using some limited data, we try to predict where the disease is likely to happen. So this is, if you say the red areas are mostly the high risk areas of CCHF, and then these areas we can target for more surveillance, maybe either tick surveillance or surveillance in cattle, or surveillance in the other animals which are involved in the transmission point. So these are the red areas indicates high risk of the disease. This is the study we did. for CCHF. And if you talk of the important risk factors, we found that buffalo density, again, like if you talk of, CCHF is mostly in humans, but somewhere the animals are playing a role, ticks are involved, different rodent species are involved. So it's a CCHF kind of a disease which is very important in terms of the zoonotic potential. As we found that buffalo density, wherever there's buffalo density is more, the disease is more likely to happen within Gujarat. So what does it mean is because this buffalo population may be supporting the hiloma vectors. So because these are the ticks which we require different host, and for that reason, the buffalo density was playing a role in terms of the, and if you see the optimum conditions required, what are the temperature conditions required. So we found these as significant factors in the transmission of CCHF. The other disease which I'll take example is your Castor forest disease, which we are working on. So again, this is a very important disease with the family Flaviviridae in genus Flavivirus. And the major vector so far, they have said the species belonging to Haemaphysalis genera and also the Ixodidae family. Mostly, most of the reports have been reported with the Haemaphysalis spinigera, and both, this is something we have isolated from different species also. And if you see the tick image, this is, I was talking about the infective stage to humans, but there are no reports of human to human transmission of KFD. So there are many reservoir hosts, they say, still it's not been identified, but they have said that two species of monkeys which also get affected with the disease might be playing a role, like black-faced langur and the red-faced bonnet monkeys, along with some ground birds, hares, white-tailed rat, bats, shrews, and domestic animals like cattle and sheep. So these are all very important things to remember when try to see understand disease like KFD. And for maybe people who are aware, but still, how this disease started was first time it was reported in the Sagar and Sorab and Shikaripur taluks of Shimoga district in Karnataka. It was in first time reported in 1957, and subsequently it has gone to, now if you see, there are 5 states which have reported, like, Maharashtra, Goa, Karnataka, Kerala, and Tamil Nadu have reported this disease. So this is all, we have to see that to prevent this spread to other states also, there is, so a role of veterinarians, the human health side, everybody is required. So we cannot say that we can prevent it, by one discipline or one department. It is completely. So what we did, we had this project on the KFD. We involved many people. It's a purely One Health team. So someone was asking in the previous talk also, like, what is the best strategy to go One Health approach? So one thing I would say is it goes by the disease. If whatever it is required for that particular disease, we have to have that composition and have a strategy. It cannot be one strategy for all the zoonotic diseases when you talk of One Health. So this is, we had a big team of, from the veterinary side, wildlife, even the remote sensing experts from the health department, from the, ICR, ICMR. So everybody was involved in this project. So we also came up with this decision support tool, which can be used by the different organizations or institutes. So whether you talk of whether it's an animal husbandry department, we demonstrated this tool to the animal husbandry department, the human health department, also forest department. So they can say that what does it do is, whenever there is a positive, it shows you on that map, and say whether it is a monkey positive or a tick positive case, or see that how maybe this tool can be alive. It has been for restricted use now. So only people with the login credentials can access this and see where the diseases are happening, so that they can prevent it earlier. And now still this year also we're having a lot of cases of KFD. So this is what the tool looks like. Whether the past data is also depicted here, whether it's sort of tick positive, whether it's monkey positive or human positives. Where are those locations? If you see that, so those can also be identified. So for the KFD point of view, if we talk of what can be the One Health approach, no, I would say that maybe we need a lot of research and surveillance priorities needs to be done. We have to involve relevant stakeholders. We have to develop policy guidelines. Then then maybe what is the priority for research? Then we have to have a technical group. And for policy guidelines, there are a lot of tools we can use, like the whether it's risk mapping or disease mapping and modeling. Ultimately, we can have a prevention and control strategy. As I said, it was restricted to one state or one district. Now it has gone to 5 states. All those things can be taken care of. So finally, like, if you talk of, the way forward point of view, like what veterinarians can play a role in One Health. What I have done so far, how veterinarians are playing a role in, or whether it's outbreak investigations or research point, or how to see that, different reservoir host for different diseases, and how the disease can spill over to humans and subsequently transmit to, from human to human if there is some disease like that. So what is that we can do in future also? It's not like, everything is perfect. We always need to see that we are improving and seeing what best can be done. What is the current gaps right now? So it is, if you, on the left side, if you see, there is a lot of activities on the animal health side, a lot of activities going on the, human health side, in terms of the, whether you talk of vector surveillance, there are different reporting mechanism. Now people are talking about how we can come together and see, at least for zoonotic diseases, we have one platform, because now or the government of India is going to, has already started this national digital livestock mission, in that the reporting system, which will be online reporting systems. But there is a talk going on. There is also online reporting system in the human health side, how this sector can come together. So, so that if we talk of zoonotic diseases, we need to have integrated surveillance effect for, surveillance efforts required, so that we can, jointly we can work on zoonotic diseases to make sure that, as I said in the initial slides, I was talking about the stages of the infections. If it is in the, prevented at the very early stage, so it will not lead to any spillover and then subsequent transmission and maybe leading to a pandemic kind of thing. So there are a lot of gaps to be addressed. Still, a lot of discussions are going on. A lot of commissions have been, or committees have been formed. There is no National One Health Institute is also formed, and there is a lot of standing committees on zoonotic diseases. A lot of efforts are going on post-COVID. It's not like that, but still there are some gaps we can address. What are the areas which we can work together? And every place there is a role of veterinarian. Either is a veterinarian at the field. Most of the times is a veterinarian at the field, which are playing a very important role for both livestock and the zoonotic diseases. If we talk of the areas where we can focus our energies in terms of research, development of diagnostics, identification of the high risk areas. Example like anthrax, like disease, it can be very well prevented in animals. So in the high risk areas, go for vaccination and risk factor studies. Outbreak investigation, I was talking about. We talk of outbreak investigation in animals, in humans, then studies more. Nowadays, people are talking about the genomic epidemiology and how we can trace the origin of the pathogen and see that whether it's, how it is transmitting and what is the source of which animal it got. So live it can be done. So there are a lot of scopes in that also. When I was talking about initially the outbreak investigation, if it is a purely animal disease, if we talk of either anthrax or if it is avian influenza, these are all the diseases which is always, happening in animals. So the field veterinarians should be, trained in that, and so the outbreak investigations can be done systematically. And services and policy. This is something, because people always talk about One Health, but what aspects we need to work on. This is one main area of, in terms of services and policy. We need to have come up with policy guidelines, as previous speaker was saying about the advocacy part. It requires at the every stage actually. So how to mitigate the risk factors, how to do the capacity building, and how we can make sure that, the policy documents are in place for every zoonotic diseases in India. So these are the areas, so that, if we talk of what can be this long-term strategy, um, with this I'll try to summarize now. So in terms of the strategies for prevention of emergence of zoonotic pathogens within India and from other countries, as previously I was talking about the gaps, and then this one, the areas where we can work together. So, but if you want to see how the strategy should be for prevention of any zoonotic diseases, I have made it in a way like, see that how we can see that within India, there are a lot of zoonotic diseases. How we can prevent that, both in animals and also prevent the spillover in humans. So what we need to do, a lot of surveillance is required in the reservoir host. And also we need to see that, so how the surveillance can be enhanced in humans also. So this is something, if you talk of, within India point of view, so that we can prevent, as I was talking about the stages, stage 1, 2, 3, so that this can be prevented at the, earlier stage. So in terms of other countries' point of view, if you talk of there is always risk of getting diseases from other countries also. So it's not like always, no, these risk is always there within country, these zoonotic diseases risk, but there is also risk of the diseases coming from other countries. Like if you talk of the surveillance of zoonotic diseases, we need to, there is always, like, there is presence of surveillance at the ports. They call it as port surveillance, but still there is a lot of scope for improvement in terms of what pathogens needs to be detected and how it should be done and how best it can be improved. There is all the quarantine is also in place, and the quarantine for animals, any animals which are brought from other countries, either pets or any other ones, they follow some guidelines and do it. There's something which can also be done. So ultimately, the aim is to see that how we can prevent it at the earlier stage and will not, so it can be detected early investigation, no reaction and early reaction and the containment of these, so that we can prevent the outbreaks to happen in humans, or to prevent to go beyond our control and maybe lead into a pandemic what happened. So everywhere, if you notice, the role of veterinarians is very important. And the people, I'm thankful for the organizers for asking me to speak on this occasion and highlighting the importance of veterinarians in this One Health or zoonotic diseases. How veterinarian, and the previous speaker highlighted, is not only about this One Health or zoonosis, but also in terms of food security point of view. There are many places, the veterinarians are playing a role, and they will continue playing the role. And then definitely we need to be, see that we are contributing to this aspect. So in
Thank
terms
you.
of, so the one last slide, I'll close it. So capacity building is one aspect, and then we have to see that we are trained in that different aspects of training on One Health, the diagnostics, and the field aspects. So ultimately, by this is last slide to say that nowadays people are talking not about One Health, but they say planetary health. So we have to move towards that. Public health is one focus, then global health. One Health talks about both animals, wild animals, environment and everything. But ultimately, we have to think of the planetary health in terms of the climate change and other aspects. So we have to see that the bigger picture. So we are moving towards planetary health now. So with this, I thank once again organizers for inviting me and delivering this talk on occasion of World Veterinary Day. And once again, I wish everyone, World Veterinary Day. So thank you so much for your patience listening, and I'll happy to take questions on that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. It's a great presentation. So we have few questions in the chat box.
Okay.
So first one is from Dr. Major Archin Arora. So Ladakh is a solitary place. Still, we have encountered increased numbers of FMD, Rannicott disease, and also parasitic and immunoprotozoal diseases. So what could be the most important reasons?
It's a very good point. Ladakh, I was not knowing, I've not seen much data. See what happens, maybe it's isolated is one thing, but it depends on the disease also. If you talk of, but still there can be some movement of animals. We say that it's completely isolated, but still a lot of, I would say illegal movement of animals is one aspect, right? So which is we have seen in, across the Bangladesh border is also there. And in terms of, other migratory birds, there are other reasons also. We have looked into all these factors actually. When we did one workshop for, transboundary diseases among the neighboring countries. So there are many, entry point also. For us, it looks like Ladakh is an isolated place, but it is, neighboring to Nepal, one side, somewhere, China also. And there are a lot of river bodies are there. There are a lot of migratory birds are there. And there are a lot of illegal movement of the animals. And something which is maybe vaccination is maybe not carried out. I don't know. But these are the main factors I could think of. I think that should be the answer.
And the second question from anonymous attendee: how can we make zoonotic disease reporting more efficient for field doctors?
More efficient. Okay. Yeah, it's very good, rather important question, because of, the field level, there is a need to have more, field level point of care diagnostics. That is one aspect I would say, so that people can diagnose bit early. And we need to have good laboratory facilities at the field level. We need to have more number of human resource, employed at the um, field level. So everything, as was discussing along, completely in my presentation, is about It starts from the very field level. So how much we can strengthen the field with respect to the diagnostic capability, more in human infrastructure, human resources, and other infrastructure facilities, good laboratory facilities. We need to have that. So we have to strengthen that. That's much I can say. Yeah.
So there is one more question from Page Chawla. How veterinarian plays a best role to save birds and other species, like sparrow count decreases due to radiation or some other reason?
So, I think bird medicine or something I will try to see in a different aspect, because veterinarians, the expectation from veterinarians is like, anything apart from humans, veterinarians have to take care, right? And definitely, I take the point what she's trying to say in terms of the sparrows or any other birds. I would say that something we need to have specialized medicine courses at the undergraduate, also postgraduate. See that so people can take up something on the bird medicine or maybe equine medicine, wildlife medicine. There are some courses, but not at the UG level. But it can be thought of, so that that's a very important point for me. Also, birds. I feel like somewhere we need to see how we can take care of those birds. The other aspect is, this he said about the radiation and other aspect. So we have to see that we are addressing a problem in a holistic way, so that at least not only veterinarians but other departments are also supporting that, right? So wherever there is bird areas, migratory bird areas, or any other bird sanctuaries, how best we can avoid these towers, radiations, everything, right? So it's not only about the veterinarians. Veterinarians, I would say, go to specialized courses in the bird medicine, and other departments play more important, so that we are more caring about these birds. Hope that answers the question.
Yes. So we have one more question. What could be done as a preliminary aid to person suspected with KFT?
What is that? Repeat. Preliminary.
So what could be done as a preliminary aid to a person suspected with KFT?
Yeah, so what happens first, if you go through our website also, the monkey fever project and the project websites, we have come up with a lot of precautionary, things can be done, a lot of leaflets and other, cards. We have given the information on the ticks, how to go to forest, what kind of, precautions they can go take while go into forest, to prevent tick bites, all those things, details are given. First thing is to how to prevent the tick bite. Once it is suspected, there are set of standard guidelines by the human health department given. Immediately have to report it once they tested. They have these hospital guidelines to treat most, because it's an hemorrhagic disease. It has to be taken by the medical specialist. So I think from there it can be taken. It's suspected of. It should not be ignored for sure, because it's not like normal fever. It will come down. You get severe fever, severe headache, and other symptoms are there. So it cannot be ignored. It has to be immediately reported to the medical authorities and taken care, because sometimes it can also lead to fatality also. But most of the people, they recover. But that has to be because there is no treatment for that. Vaccine is also discontinued. But only thing is, fluid therapy and other guidelines has to be followed.
Yes, so we have one more question from Ninisha Gamit. So is there any difference in the outbreaks of FMD as compared to previous outbreaks in India?
Previous outbreaks?
Is there any difference in recent outbreaks of FMD when you compare with previous outbreaks of FMD in India?
Okay. See, one thing we have noticed in FMD is, it has reduced. Overall, the number of cases of FMD have reduced. So now what we are seeing, any cases of FMD, either it is unvaccinated, those population more, or maybe it can be sometimes in the younger age group also. So that is one. There's not much change because of the serotype wise, still there are same serotypes going on, because only the intensive vaccination, the cases have come down. If you see the cases, these are the reasons we are finding, maybe, unvaccinated or maybe pregnant animals or the young ones, which are more, affected. In terms of any new symptoms or any other changes, as of whatever, we have done some studies, but we could not find any major no changes. But one observation what we got was the crossbred animals were more affected, at least in South Karnataka. But apart from that, there is reduced cases. So there is no much changes in terms of symptoms or any other thing.
So there is one more question from Dr. Vagesh Mishra. So how for zoonotic disease awareness is at ground level, or how can we make, or how can we create awareness to the ground, grassroots level?
It's very important point actually, because everything is at the grassroots level is required. So there are a lot of efforts going on. And if you talk of NCDC, which is a human health organization, which has come up with a lot of leaflets and other things. As I said, we also developed some kind of this is what we call IEC material. And the human health side, there are a lot of IEC activities going on. But I agree, there is a lot of efforts to be required. So if you talk of, maybe there are many, the pulse polio program and those kind of things, it was done in a way. So much of advertisement was done. So that is something very lacking at the grassroots level for zoonotic diseases, which can be done. There is a lot of scope. So you can use all sorts of communication, whether some people even in the KFD investigation or field visit, we have seen that how the folk dance and other things can be used. There are many things which can be done. Right now, I feel like still it is not reaching the grassroots level because we are not going. The communication is something which is not reaching everyone in the field level. But having said that, we also have to make sure we are balancing the awareness versus panic. So that's what I would say. Otherwise, there is a lot of scope, and which is very important aspect which I feel for the zoonotic diseases.
So we have one more question from Dr. Sanjay Panchal. Is there any differences in recent outbreaks of bird flu?
Recent? What is it?
Outbreaks of bird flu.
Recent. Actually, this year there are reports from Andhra Pradesh, Nellore. There is a report from Kerala, and this yesterday, maybe 2 days back, there was a report in Ranchi. So there are three states which I know, this which are recently affected in this year, and which is quite unusual to happen something in April, but it has been reported in these three states. Yeah.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
So as you work closely with different zoonotic pathogens, what could be the reason why we are actually not reporting disease anthrax in colder regions, in colder parts of India?
Holden, any example you think of? Cold, what do you mean?
Ladakh.
Fine. So
Yeah.
only anthrax is one disease which is completely very environmental sensitive disease. When you talk of in our studies, what we found, this is something we sort of modeled even human anthrax cases, animal anthrax cases. One thing, there are factors like soil pH plays a role. So the alkaline pH is one aspect. And there is certain rainfall is also important. Certain temperature is also important. So these are soil temperature or general, temperature. Why it is so? Because again, the survival of the spores, it requires some suitable alkaline pH. Having said that, Ladakh and colder region can also report or get anthrax if something previous history is there, because that cold is acting like natural preservative kind of thing for the bacteria. So there was reports in other countries, in some animals, I forgot that study. So they reported after 100 years, that some carcass was removed and then got the disease. Again, why it may happen? Because of the climate change. So if we talk of endemic point of view, because of the suitable environmental conditions like the soil pH, soil temperature, rainfall, all those factors which can support sporulation. If you understand the point of sporulation, what does it mean? The vegetative bacteria convert into spore, right? And survival of the spore. That is one thing which is determines, if we take an example, one dead carcass is taken to colder region, whether anthrax will happen there. So because it may not sporulate first, if it sporulates, then maybe spore will not survive for long, right? So then the cycle is not maintained. So that is very good question in terms of, we started off with that question only. So why anthrax may not be there in other areas? Not exactly cold, but what will happen if it goes to other places? So these are the conditions we found are important or very important.
Yes, I have one more question for you.
Yeah.
So what kind of emerging or in terms of zoonotic pathogens we can expect in India? As you know, there is a lot of intensification and there is a lot of human movement to other countries, and we started occupying forests. So there is climate change. A lot of things are happening. So what are the different kinds of zoonotic diseases we can expect in future?
Yeah, very important point and question, because so I cannot say which disease actually. So because it can be anything, first thing. So what we wanted to do one study was to at least see where we can expect these kind of emergence, what you exactly said, right? So new diseases. So where to do the surveillance, where to do the study. So what we were looking is, mainly the wildlife, livestock, human interface level. So these are the places where, where we can expect something emerge can, emerging disease can, emerging zoonosis can happen. So exactly saying any disease, but anything can happen for many reasons. First thing is about the trade point of view also, how we are getting the import and export from different countries. That is one route. And through migratory birds, again, we got H5, the avian influenza, hypopathogenic avian influenza virus also we got with that. So there are many things, Ebola, we got some antibodies kind of thing. So that is one, pathogen which is at sort of can enter India. But apart from that, because if you talk of not zoonotic diseases, but we take examples like LSD, the lumpy skin disease, and the African's swine fever, which were not in India, we got it right. So likewise, there are many such diseases which can enter India through different routes, and which many zoonotic diseases which may be there in the wildlife or the different reservoir population, which can also emerge. I cannot, if I could pinpoint, I think, that will be something which is very magical also. So say that this one disease will come out and, make can create havoc. But there are many sort of tip of the iceberg kind of situation, it can, anything can emerge for that. I can't say any one disease. There are many things. So we have to be better prepared, I would say. So we have to improve our surveillance and see how best we can, prevent it actually. Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
There's no other question, right? Thank you so much for
Yes.
inviting. Thank you everyone for the
Yeah.
patience listening.
So
Yeah.
yeah, we have some more items pending. So to commemorate this occasion, EMRA has conducted a photo contest. So we are pleased to announce the winners of the contest now. So revealing the winners of the photo contest. So third prize, Dr. Brajesh Meena, Uttarakhand. Second prize, Dr. Rangarao, Andhra Pradesh. And first prize, Dr. Amit Verma, Uttar Pradesh. All the winners, congratulations. So all the winners will receive a mail confirmation from EMRA and share the requested details to receive the prize. So on behalf of EMRA Green Health Services, I'll express vote of thanks. I deem it a great honor to propose vote of thanks to all who have helped us in making this seminar such a resounding success. So first of all, I would like to propose my heartfelt thanks to our keynote speakers, Dr. Christopher Olsen and Dr. Mudasir Chanda, for gracing today's webinar. Thank you, speakers, for your very interesting and thought-provoking presentations. I would like to extend my sincere gratitude to the director and the president of EMRA for accepting our proposal and allowing us to host the webinar on this special event. I would like to convey my heartfelt appreciation to everyone here for taking their time to join us today and in making this event a huge success. Thank you. That's the end of today's webinar. Now, we all will take a picture with our videos on and thumbs up. So please, I request all of you to switch on your videos. Okay. Thank you. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.